I grew up as the middle child between two brothers. My older brother was deeply involved in the Boy Scouts. He eventually became an Eagle Scout. My younger brother tried it for a short time but quit. Strangely, my parents never pushed me to join the Scouts, but I always felt jealous of my older brother. Sometimes my mom would take me along when he had Scout events like Pinewood Derby races or meetings. I loved watching everything. What made me the most jealous were the camping trips. Every few months, the troop would go out into the woods and camp for the entire weekend. I once rode along when my parents dropped my brother off. I watched them setting up tents and starting campfires. It looked amazing, but I had to leave with my parents because I wasn't part of the troop. I must have been around 7 or 8 when I had an idea. If I couldn't go camping in the woods, I would go camping in the backyard. Our house sat in a big neighborhood where the backyards were huge and mostly open. There weren't many fences, just patches of trees between properties. It already felt a little like the woods. My parents liked the idea. My older brother set up his Scout tent in the yard. My dad even lit the fire pit so we could roast marshmallows and pretend it was a real camping trip. My little brother joined us for the campfire. But he was only 4 years old, so my parents took him back inside before bedtime. Eventually, it was just me and my older brother in the tent. We climbed into our sleeping bags and pulled out our Game Boy SPs. I remember playing Super Mario Bros. 2, a game I loved but could never beat as a kid. After a while, we turned off the games and tried to sleep. But sleeping in a sleeping bag was uncomfortable, and I kept tossing around. It felt strange being outside. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep. When I woke up, it took a moment to remember where I was. The inside of the tent was dark, except for faint moonlight through the fabric. Then, I noticed something. My brother was gone. His sleeping bag was empty. The tent zipper was still closed, so I assumed he had gone back inside the house because he couldn't sleep. Suddenly, I didn't want to be alone in the tent anymore. I crawled over and slowly unzipped the entrance. Before climbing out, I peeked outside just to check the yard. And that's when I saw him. A man was sitting by the fire pit. It definitely wasn't my brother. It was a grown man sitting in the dark. Facing the tent, I froze. If I could see him, he could definitely see me. I gasped and quickly zipped the tent shut. I dove back into my sleeping bag, as if the thin fabric could protect me. I stayed perfectly still. The tent was silent, except for my heartbeat. Then I heard the chair by the fire pit scrape against the ground. He stood up. A moment later, I saw a shadow through the tent wall. Someone was standing right outside. I didn't move. I hoped he might think the tent was empty. Then I heard the zipper. Slowly, it started moving downward. Only a few inches opened, but it was enough. Near the bottom of the tent, there was a tiny gap where the zipper didn't fully close. I had never noticed it before. An eye appeared in that gap. Just one eye, staring directly at me. I could see the white of it in the darkness. I was so scared I couldn't even scream at first. My whole body locked up. The eye squinted slightly, like the man was smiling. The zipper moved a little more. That's when I finally screamed. I kicked out of my sleeping bag and slammed into the tent poles, trying to get away. Immediately, I heard footsteps running through the yard. The back porch light suddenly turned on. My dad burst out the back door, yelling, and ran toward the fire pit. But whoever it was had already disappeared. My parents called the police. Officers searched the area, but never found anyone. I slept in my parents' bed that night. For weeks, I had nightmares about that eye, staring into the tent. Eventually, life started to feel normal again. But about a month later, something happened that terrified me even more. I was at school during recess. Our playground was fenced in, and the fence faced the street. I was standing near the fence when a man on the other side called out, "Hey!" I turned around. He asked me for directions to somewhere. I told him I didn't know. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. "Your name is Chris, right?" I immediately lied and said no. He smiled. "You don't remember me, do you?" I ran straight to one of the teachers, supervising recess, and pointed toward the fence. But when we looked back, the man was gone. The school called my parents and sent me home early. To this day, I'm almost certain it was the same man from my backyard. And sometimes I still think about how close that night might have come to ending very differently.